Meet Frank Udinson, Esquire. He's partner over at Win Big Law, the official law firm of 2-Minute Tennis. His motto is don't just win, win big, which I think is a pretty good motto even for the tennis court, not just the courtroom. And he asked me to analyze his serve because, hey, why not? This is what I do. And he said that he really needs some help. Obviously, he takes things very seriously, wearing a shirt and tie while playing tennis. I absolutely love it. All right, let's get right into it. Let's look at how Frank can improve his service motion. Now, before I analyze Frank's serve and give him 5 easy tips to get him hitting bigger and faster serves, if you think you have a case and need representation in any of the areas listed on the screen, don't hesitate. Contact Frank today. You can dial #4law or just visit his website at winbiglawfirm.com. And don't worry if you're not in Pennsylvania or Georgia. He can help you find representation in your local area to see how much your case is worth. Remember, don't just win, win big. All right, now, Frank, you do many things correctly. You've got a good grip. I like the way you toss, by the way. You toss palm down. It's an interesting way to toss, but it actually ensures that you're not going to be bending the elbow. It's actually a very classic way that players used to toss long ago. Absolutely love it. It's a great old school way of serving. I love the fact that you come up on edge. Love this left arm tucking in against the body. Very Power X-like. Really great stuff. All right, let's go to the first thing. And the first thing is you need to use something called ball up, tip down. So what are we talking about? Obviously the ball up in the air, but the tip of your racket is pointing up when the ball comes out of your hand. Let me put you side by side with Djokovic because he is the epitome of the correct technique called ball up, tip down. Now, the video on the right is courtesy of Essential Tennis, so thank you, Ian, for letting me use your video. Now, Frank, you'll see that I've put your toss and Joker's toss out of your left hands about the same distance, but look at the difference in where the racket is. Djokovic has the tip of the racket pointing down. You have the tip of the racket pointing up. If you can delay your racket and keep it down, you can see his racket is down by his knees and yours is up at head level. If you can keep the racket down by your knees at this point where you have kind of a bowed wrist, and you can see that his wrist is kind of curled over, allowing the tip of the racket to be pointing down. If you can do that, that instantly lengthens the distance the racket has to travel in a very short amount of time. And we know this definition of speed is distance over time. So you have a short distance for him or for your racket to travel. And Djokovic has a longer distance, which means what? He has to go faster. So an easy way to build in the need to swing faster is to delay the racket a little bit. So if you need to feel like your wrist is curled over, to keep the tip of the racket pointing down, then do so. But try to have the tip of the racket pointing down when the ball is about a foot out of your hand, and your need to swing faster will obviously be there. It'll be very necessary for you to swing faster, and you will instantly hit faster serves. Frank, the second idea that is going to help you hit faster serves is to learn how to knock off a birthday hat from front to back. So I'm going to ask you to wear a physical birthday hat and to knock that hat off from front to back. At the moment, your strings are facing up. In the trophy position, if you will, I call it the knock the birthday hat off position, but in the trophy position at this moment, your strings are facing up, and that doesn't allow you to actually move the racket in a lasso-like motion. In fact, your racket gets closer to the back of your head as we look at your serve. So instead of having your strings facing open and your strings facing up like this, remember, you're going to be at this moment with the tip pointing down, just like Djokovic, and I want you to knock off a birthday hat. Let me show you my serve to see the difference. So, by the way, you can see the ball up, tip down position that I have with a slightly bowed wrist. Again, that lengthens the distance my racket has to travel, and it forces my racket to go faster. But let's look at the motion here. Imagine, again, I'm wearing a birthday hat. There it is right there. Watch my racket pass in over my head from front to back. Your racket goes back and then kind of comes in towards your head. That move right there, that is not the fastest way to move the racket, and the birthday hat is an easy solution. So having the ball up, tip down movement of the racket and having the tip down allows for the tip of the racket to then point to the right, which you can see you don't. You have the tip of the racket pointing at the back fence, but when you have the tip down as you release, and then you come in right over your head, that move right there, it's the move that Federer makes, it's the move that Djokovic makes, Kyrgios makes that move. It's the fastest way to move the racket and produces the biggest serves. So you're going to have to wear a physical birthday hat. Don't just imagine it, but a physical birthday hat, because if you were wearing a birthday hat right now, you would not hit the birthday hat off. You've got to bring the racket from in front of you back and knock the birthday hat off. That instantly will get you hitting bigger serves. Frank, the third tip is going to be a more explosive leg drive up into the air. Now, one thing I would actually recommend for you to do to help you get the explosion up and to really get the ground force to work in your favor, to get the energy to go through the body into the ball, is to really keep your left arm up longer. Let me put you side by side with Federer, because there's a clear difference between how long you stay in the air versus Federer. Now, if I put the two of you in a very similar place with your racket, here we can see the racket over your left shoulder. Here we can see the racket over Federer's left shoulder. Like right here. Notice where his left hand is, way up above his head, when your left hand is at eye level. By keeping the left arm up, it helps keep your body up. Like, watch when he lands, Frank. Watch where his racket is. Watch how he's still in the air, still in the air, still in the air. And right now, his left foot hits the ground. Look where his racket is. Racket's down at his knees. Look where your racket is when your left foot hits the ground. Your left foot has already hit the ground. There's a big difference in his arm being here versus here. That just means you're not in the air as long as Federer. Now, that's not easy to do, but I think it'll actually be beneficial for you to stay in the air longer and get your body exploding up rather than collapsing, because as you hit the ball, watch how you collapse. Your body is collapsing and coming down as you hit, where Federer's body, everything's going up as he's hitting. He's really hitting the ball when his head is as high as it can be. Like, his head is at the very highest it's been, where your head, you can see, is pulling down as you hit. I think this has a lot to do with how early you're pulling that left arm down. So keep your left arm up longer, and really in your mind, try to get your energy to go up into the air, up toward the ball, like Federer, rather than pulling down as you hit. I want more explosive leg drive out of you, Frank. And the way you can actually work on that is to keep the left hand up longer. All right, Frank, the fourth tip I've got for you to hit bigger serves. I want you to notice at contact how your arm and your racket are basically in a straight line. I mean, to be completely honest, there's a slight angle between the arm and racket, but ideally, Frank, you want to have quite a difference. Let me draw the racket, if you will. The racket would be here. There should be quite a difference between the angle of the arm and the angle of the racket. There's nobody better at this than John Isner. When you watch Isner at contact, you can see the incredible difference between the arm and the racket. And serve after serve, you just don't have that. See, when your arm and racket are in a straight line, you can't pronate as forcefully. What you see with Isner is that the racket actually doesn't pass over his hand, but it passes to the inside of his hand. Again, yours is in a straight line, and that would look like this. You may have to have the feeling of tossing a little bit more left, but still having your hand in the same spot. That will allow your racket to be more at this angle, which is a more forceful way to pronate. So work on having your hand at contact to the right of the ball rather than having your hand actually in line and under the ball. And your ability to forcefully pronate will increase. And now the last idea, Frank, is after you're done serving, notice your strings are facing down. Ideally, you should keep rotating your shoulder, keep rotating that forearm and pronating, and your strings should face off to the right. Think of this as a runway for a really fast swing to be kind of allowed to happen. It's one thing to have a plane land at a fast speed. It's another to have a long enough runway that it has time to slow down. What I'm talking about here is more going to be a byproduct of the fast swing that you'll have developed with the first 4 ideas. But if you notice your arm here being perfectly straight and your strings facing down, I'm going to make a suggestion. I want you to actually bend your right elbow right after contact with your strings facing off to the right. And when I compare you to J.J. Wolf, you'll notice after he hits the ball, the elbow bend. Kind of call this the Sampras elbow. Sampras used to have the same move, and it makes it so much easier to get your strings to face off to the right rather than your strings facing down at this point. This is actually something that I have started to implement just from a shoulder flexibility standpoint to allow me to pronate and get that internal shoulder rotation. That's going to allow you to actually get that forearm snap and that power, especially because you're going to have the racket, just like Isner, off to your left. So it's going to be, I mean, this is something that Ben Shelton does. Nadal does this. I would start finishing, and obviously he follows through with the power X, and he's got his arms crossed, and you're following through as well onto your left side. So that's all well and good. I'm not telling you to stop at this moment here, like stop your swing. But I want you to bend your elbow after contact with your palm facing off to the right and your strings facing off to the right to ensure proper pronation and forearm snap as you strike the ball. Now, to find out how much your case could be worth, click right here and contact Frank at Win Big Law. Frank, you follow these ideas to improve your serve, and there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2MinuteTennis.net. Frank, you got this.